Hey guys, and welcome back to the game room. So it's time for me to give my thoughts and a review on the 8BitDo Super Nintendo controller, the SNES30 game controller. As part of that, of course, the retro receiver. I'll be looking at that as well, because to actually use this with a Super Nintendo, I've got to use the receiver. As you can see, it's got the Super Nintendo connector. And I'll also kind of give you just a quick tour of the controller against the original controller that you can see I've got here, and a UK Super Nintendo controller. The first thing that you're going to notice is that the buttons look a little bit different. The action buttons, as it were, the X, Y, A, B buttons, they're the North American colour scheme on the 8BitDo controller. And on our original Super NES controller, of course, you've got the green, blue, yellow and red. Other than that, the controller, the 8BitDo controller is a little bit thicker, but it's not really that noticeable. And design-wise, it's really good. I actually think the shoulder buttons on the 8BitDo controller are actually better. They feel a bit more sturdy than the original Super Nintendo controller. This obviously feels quite stiff because it's a brand new controller, so things like the D-pad, for example, feel quite stiff compared to my Super Nintendo controller here, because that's had probably God knows how much use over the years. And this one is brand new, so it's hardly had that much use in comparison, of course, so it will feel stiffer. So in order to use it with the Super Nintendo, you've got to use this retro receiver. Just want to make a quick correction to anybody that's watched Gamester81, his video review of this receiver and the controller. You don't have to charge the receiver. The receiver actually receives the voltage through one of the pins off the controller port when you plug this in. I know that because as soon as you switch the Super Nintendo on, you get a quick flash of white, and then this is flashing blue to show that it's looking for a Bluetooth device. I don't think there's a battery in there. It literally just is some Bluetooth circuitry, like a receiver. So yeah, this is relatively straightforward. You've got a button there, red button, to actually look for devices, to try and pair a Bluetooth device, because this can actually be used with a few different controllers, like the DualShock 3 can be used with this, for example, the PlayStation 3 controller, and the DualShock 4, the PlayStation 4 controller, and also I believe there's a Wii U controller, a Wii Controller Pro. The Pro controller can be used with it as well. So this is quite versatile and quite cool. Obviously, if you've got a Macintosh or a Windows-based PC or an Android device or an iOS device, you could just sync this straight up to it and use this to play games. Perfect for emulation purposes. This also has a Retron 5 mode, so it can be used with a Retron 5 if anybody's got one of those and wants to use this. Now, inside the box with the SNES30 controller, you literally get a cable for charging purposes. You also get a nice keychain, which I'm not going to show you because it's absolutely tiny and it'll be very, very difficult to show you. You get the instruction manual, which to me is a little bit confusing, to be quite honest. I was just trying to figure out how to use this with the Super Nintendo. I'm not really too fussed about using it with anything else. And likewise, with the receiver, you generally just get this piece of packaging that's got some very, very basic instructions on the back of it that don't really tell me very much. And somehow, by sort of luck really, more than anything else, I managed to get these two to sync up with each other, and that's it. From that point onwards, they've worked fine. You literally have to hold down the start button for a few seconds to switch the controller on, as I'm going to do here. And you can see the LED lights up, and now it's flashing to search for its Bluetooth controller, Bluetooth counterpart, the receiver, of course. And then you press and hold the start button to actually turn that controller off, and there it goes, it turns off. So in terms of actually using the controller, it feels great. It really does. It feels like how I would imagine a brand new Super Nintendo controller would have felt back in the day. It feels really, really nice, well built. It doesn't feel cheap and nasty as people might have thought it would. It feels fantastic. And another thing that I did last night whilst I was giving this a play test and running through was I captured some high-speed video footage using my phone, 60 frames, of me actually pressing, an action button. In this case, it was the jump in Super Mario World with both controllers, so you could actually see the difference in reaction time, but I couldn't see any difference at all. And the reason that I'm not showing that footage within this video is because the XRGB FrameMeister, that's an integral part of my setup, all my consoles go through it, actually adds circa 1 frame of lag, so there'd be lag with both controllers. Another test that I did as well, because I thought, okay, that's not really helped too much because it looks like there's absolutely no difference between these two, was I fired up a copy of Street Fighter 2 Turbo, plugged these both in, of course, and selected Ryu as both controller, the characters for both controllers, and tried as best as I could to hit the punch buttons at the same time. And the good news is I couldn't see a difference with the animation, the punch animation for Ryu. it seemed to finish at exactly the same time, which suggests to me that these two controllers, there's no difference in lag. I know there was some concern from the guys on the Shmups forums, and there were people that shot this thing down straight away and its NES counterpart by saying that it would add lag, but to me it makes perfect sense that it doesn't, because otherwise the likes of Sony and Microsoft wouldn't have used Bluetooth for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and I know the Xbox One S, the new controller for that console, uses Bluetooth. In fact, I think the 360 just uses normal wireless. It doesn't use Bluetooth. But anyway, so final thoughts really, I guess, guys, on this. Do I recommend picking up the 8BitDo controller, bearing in mind it's going to set you back quite a bit more than going out and buying a normal Super Nintendo controller? This roughly set me back about £40, and I managed to get it from a UK reseller. Would I recommend it? That's the question I'm sure a lot of people are going to be asking on this video. Well, I'm pretty sure you can tell from what I've said that of course I do. It is a very, very good product. It feels nice. It feels sturdy. The buttons feel fantastic. I would have preferred to have had our, coloured buttons and not the ones that are sort of, I think they're concave buttons up there. I would have preferred it to be exactly like ours, but this is how the North American Super Nintendo controller was. But I've got to say, I love it. It feels absolutely fantastic. It really, really does. And I was having a lot of fun playing my Super Nintendo wirelessly last night. It's brilliant. I highly recommend these controllers, guys. I'm going to be picking up the NES equivalent of this as well at some point, and I'm going to be putting that through its paces as well. I can't see there's going to be any difference. It should be just as good. So yeah, if you're thinking about wireless controllers for your retro consoles, or if you're a bit of an emulation person, or you've got a Retron 5 and you quite like using something that's like the original controller, again, I recommend picking these up because they're just so good. They're definitely worth the money. So guys, thanks as ever for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.